At Thanksgiving, Mom texted, "Leave your kids home. Your brother's kids don't want them ruining the cabin weekend." I sent a thumbs up and quietly canceled the mountain lodge I had paid for everyone. 49 minutes later, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Then Dad said one sentence that made me grab my keys immediately. The text came in while I was fifth in line at the school pickup. Beckett was already in the passenger seat because his English teacher lets his class out 3 minutes early on Wednesdays. And Beckett reads whatever comes in on my phone the way all 11-year-olds read whatever comes in on their parents' phones, which is to say, without asking. I heard the buzz. I felt him lean over the console. I did not stop him. I never stop him. He knows the phone contains parts of my life he is not supposed to see, and he has learned to read the parts he does see with a certain flatness of expression that is not childish and is not adult and is his own thing. The text was from my mother, Trudy. It said, "Leave your kids home. Weston's kids don't want them ruining the cabin weekend." Sloan cries every time Rhett wins at Uno, and Beckett's food restrictions are exhausting. You can come if you want, but this is not a place for weak children. Beckett read it. He did not blink. He turned his head to look out the passenger window. He watched a woman get out of a Subaru 3 cars ahead of us and open the back door for a kindergartner with a Batman backpack. He watched the kindergartner climb in. He watched the woman close the door. He watched the Subaru pull forward. Then he said, in the voice of a kid who has decided the words are just words and words cannot hurt you if you have already put them somewhere they cannot reach, "It is fine, Mom." It was not fine. I did not reply to the text right away. The line moved. Sloan came out of the second-grade door with her backpack half open and a paper cutout of a turkey in her hand. She got in the back seat. She held up the turkey. It had feathers made of taped-on construction paper. She had written her name across the belly in silver marker. She said, "Ms. Kendrick said mine was the tallest one because I used extra feathers." Beckett said, "Cool." I pulled out of the pickup line. I drove home. I did not look at the phone. Sloan held the turkey the whole way. Beckett watched the window. At the red light on Bearden Avenue, I reached into the door pocket of my car and touched Grandpa Ellsworth's brass compass because I touch it when I'm deciding what kind of person to be next. And I decided at that red light at 3:22 in the afternoon on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving that I was going to be the kind of person my grandfather would have recognized. He would have recognized the version of me that did not answer. He would have recognized the version of me that did not explain. He would have recognized the version of me that said, out loud once, to nobody in particular, "You will know where north is your whole life. Some people never learn." I dropped the kids at home. I sent Trudy a thumbs up emoji. I opened my laptop on the kitchen counter. I logged into the lodge reservation portal, and at 4 p.m. on the dot, I canceled the 6-bedroom mountain lodge I had booked and paid for, and confirmed for 11 people at Blackberry Ridge Resort in Gatlinburg for Thanksgiving weekend. $8,400 refunded to my card. Cancellation confirmation emails sent automatically to the 11 family members whose names had been on the reservation, because the resort's booking software sends the confirmation to every listed guest for check-in verification, which is a policy Trudy had once complimented me on because it meant she did not have to remember dates. The emails hit inboxes at 4:07. The phone started ringing at 4:11. Before I tell you what my father said at 4:49, I need to tell you 3 things. My name is Vivian. I am 39 years old. I work as a regional insurance claims adjuster for auto and property claims across East Tennessee. I drive 30,000 miles a year visiting damaged cars in gravel driveways and water-damaged houses in floodplains and hail-hit roofs in subdivision cul-de-sacs. I write claims that determine whether a family gets their kitchen back or not. I am good at my job because I am good at spotting the thing a person is trying to hide inside, a claim they think is straightforward. A story that does not sit right in the paperwork sits crooked in a person's face. I can see it. It is not a talent. It is a skill I have been practicing since I was 15 years old, which is when my mother started lying to me about everything that mattered, and I started keeping track without saying I was keeping track. My grandfather Ellsworth gave me a brass compass when I was 12, not for a birthday, not for a graduation, On a Tuesday afternoon in his kitchen in Sevierville, while he was making a grilled cheese sandwich, he put the compass on the table and said, "You will know where north is your whole life. Some people never learn." He did not explain. I did not ask. I have carried the compass in the door pocket of every car I have owned since I turned 16. It has been in 3 cars. It has been in every parking lot at every claim I have ever visited. It has been in the school pickup line every Wednesday of Beckett's life and every Wednesday of Sloane's life. My grandfather died the summer I turned 22. The compass still points north. It has never been wrong. My kids are Beckett and Sloane. Beckett is 11. He has celiac disease. He cannot eat gluten. He has been unable to eat gluten since he was 4 years old and doubled over on a kindergarten field trip and threw up in a bus aisle and was diagnosed the following Tuesday. My mother has referred to his celiac disease as food restrictions for 7 years. She has referred to it as restrictions your daughter made up to be difficult for 6 of them. She has never made a gluten-free meal at her house. When we come over, Beckett eats a peanut butter sandwich on gluten-free bread. I bring in a plastic bag in my purse. That is what my mother's text was about. That is what she meant by exhausting. She meant a peanut butter sandwich. Sloane is 8. She is small for her age, and she cries when she loses. And her crying is not manipulation, and it is not weakness. It is the crying of a small person who is still learning that not winning is not the same as not mattering. She will figure it out. She is figuring it out. My son does not eat gluten, and my daughter cries at Uno, and I raised them both in a 2-bedroom house on Chapman Lane after my ex-husband moved to Nashville with a woman he met at a work conference in 2020, and I have raised them well. And the fact that my mother thinks my son's autoimmune disease and my daughter's tender heart are things that ruin cabin weekends is not a thing about my children. It is a thing about my mother. Hollis lives next door. She is 55 years old and she was a middle school English teacher for 31 years before she retired 2 years ago. Her husband Ray died 4 years ago of pancreatic cancer. The week my divorce finalized, Hollis came over on a Sunday afternoon with a foil-wrapped lasagna and a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle of a lighthouse. She stood in my kitchen while I cried into a paper towel, and she said, "I brought 2 things. One of them is for the kids. Guess which?" Beckett and Sloane worked the puzzle at the dining room table for 4 hours. I ate the lasagna alone at the kitchen counter and pulled myself back together. Hollis did not stay to watch me eat. She did the puzzle with the kids. She has not brought up the divorce in 4 years. She just shows up on Sundays now. Sometimes with soup, sometimes with a book she thinks Beckett should read, once with a bag of onions from her garden because she had too many. She is the person I call when I need to leave the house and cannot bring the kids. She is the reason I can leave the house. If this is the story you came here for, subscribe to Family Secret Tales. Because at 4:49, my father called and said one sentence, and I have known my father for 39 years, and I have never heard him say anything the way he said the sentence. At 4:11, Trudy called the first time. At 4:14, the second time. At 4:19, the third. Between 4:11 and 4:49, she called 6 times. My brother Weston called 3 times. Weston's wife Camilla called twice. My Aunt Cordelia, who was on the reservation because she always spends Thanksgiving with us, called once. Weston's kids at school did not call because they were in class. But Weston's daughter Palmer, who was 7, texted my daughter Sloane from her mother's phone at 4:33 with the message, "Your mommy canceled the cabin." Why? Sloane showed me the text. I told her not to reply. She did not reply. I did not answer any of the phone calls. I made mac and cheese from the gluten-free box. I let Beckett microwave his own hot dog because he likes to do it himself. Sloane sat at the kitchen table drawing a second turkey to send to my Aunt Cordelia because Sloane makes duplicates of everything she is proud of. Beckett did his homework at the counter. He was doing long division. He did not look at me. He knew the phone was ringing. He knew who was calling. He did not ask. At 4:49, my father Foster called. I almost let it go to voicemail. My finger was on the decline button. Then I remembered that my father does not call. He texts. He sends articles from the Knoxville News Sentinel about local high school football. He sends photos of his tomato plants in July. He calls only twice a year, and both times are on my birthday and my kids' birthdays. And he calls at exactly noon each time because he has a repeating calendar reminder Trudy set up for him in 2016. I answered. His voice was small. He does not have a small voice. He has the voice of a man who ran a small engine repair shop in West Knoxville for 32 years before he retired at 66 with a heart condition and a wife who never let him make a decision without asking her first. His voice is not the voice of a man who is afraid. The voice on the phone was afraid. Vivian, your mother maxed out my second mortgage buying gifts for Weston's kids. Please come over. Alone. I stood in my kitchen. Beckett looked up from his long division. Sloan looked up from her turkey. They did not know what he had said, but they had heard my breath go quiet. Beckett is 11 and Sloan is 8, and both of them know what silence sounds like when a mother has just heard something bad from a father who does not usually speak. Dad, are you okay? No, come over. When did she do this? Over 18 months. I did not know how much until Tuesday. I did not know all of it until an hour ago when the lodge cancellation email hit my inbox, and I looked at the account it was refunding to, and I realized the account did not have anything in it. I opened the folder. I looked at every statement. She has been shopping. She has been buying. She has been telling everyone I approved it. I did not approve it. I did not know. Where is Mom right now? In the living room, watching Wheel of Fortune. She has not spoken to me since 4:12. I am coming. Give me 40 minutes. I hung up. I looked at Beckett. I looked at Sloan. I said, Hollis is going to come sit with you. I have to go to Grandpa Foster's. Beckett said, is Grandpa okay? Not really. I am going to help him. Sloan said, should we come? No, honey, this one is grown-up stuff. Sloan accepted this because Sloan accepts almost everything I tell her. Beckett looked at me for another second and then went back to his long division. He did not ask what my mother had done. He did not need to. He already knew it was my mother. I called Hollis. She said, give me 4 minutes. She was there in 3. I pulled into my parents' driveway on Cherry Hill Road at 6:47 p.m. The house was the same house my father had bought in 1978 when he was 22 years old, and Trudy was 20, and my brother Weston was not born yet, and I would not be born for 11 years. It was a brick ranch with 3 bedrooms and a screen porch he built himself in 1994. It was paid off in 2019. It should have been the safest financial asset in my father's life. Foster opened the front door before I knocked. He looked thinner than the last time I had seen him, which was 6 weeks ago at Sloan's soccer game. He had lost maybe 8 pounds. His face was gray. His hands were shaking a little. I had never seen my father's hands shake. He led me into the kitchen. On the kitchen table was a stack of paper 11 inches high. Bank statements, credit card statements, HELOC statements, Nordstrom bills, Amazon invoices, a folder labeled medical in Trudy's handwriting, a folder labeled taxes in Foster's handwriting, and on top of everything, a printout of the Mountain Lodge cancellation email, the one that had gone to Foster's inbox at 4:07 p.m. with the subject line, your reservation at Blackberry Ridge has been canceled and the full refund amount visible in the body. Foster sat down at the kitchen table. He gestured for me to sit next to him. I sat. He said, I opened the HELOC statement first because that was the one that made the least sense to me. Vivian, look at what she has been buying. I looked. The HELOC statement covered the past 6 months. It listed 47 charges. Nordstrom, 13 times. Amazon, 18 times. Best Buy, 3 times. A Peloton dealer once. A power sports dealer in Alcoa called Hillbilly Motors. Once, for $4,842. A landscape contractor in Farragut for a recreational installation. Once, for $12,300. I looked at the itemized Amazon purchases, designer children's clothes, Apple iPads, kids' bedding sets, a robotic dog toy, Legos, everything shipped to Weston and Camilla's address on Ridgeway Drive. The Peloton was for Rhett's 10th birthday. Rhett is 10. He does not need a Peloton. The $4,800 charge at Hillbilly Motors was a mini electric ATV. For Palmer. Palmer is 7. The $12,300 recreational installation was a professional-grade in-ground trampoline installed in Weston's backyard. In September, Foster said, "The trampoline, I saw it at Labor Day. I asked Weston how he could afford it. He said Trudy helped a little. I did not ask what a little meant. I did not want to argue with her." I flipped to the second mortgage statement. Foster had opened a second mortgage against the house in 2019 for $60,000 to cover the last of my brother's business startup costs, which was a favor Foster and Trudy had chosen to do that I did not even know about at the time because I was going through my divorce that year and nobody had told me anything. The mortgage was supposed to be paid down. It had grown. The current balance was $132,000. Trudy had drawn against it 11 times in 18 months, each draw between $5,000 and $12,000, each labeled as a wire transfer to a Nordstrom account or a personal check to Weston or a payment to a vendor Foster had never heard of. $132,000 owed on a house that was paid off 2 years ago. If you have made it this far, stay. Family Secret Tales is where the second mortgage on a paid-off house tells you what a marriage has actually been. Foster looked at me. He looked at the folder labeled medical. His voice was steady the way a person's voice is steady when they have been rehearsing a sentence for hours and they have decided they can say it exactly once and no more. Dr. Rasmussen scheduled the mitral valve repair for December 18th. That is 32 days from now. The out-of-pocket after Medicare and my supplement is $41,000. I told your mother in August. She said she would handle the savings. I have been checking the wrong account. I have been checking the household checking. She has been draining the HELOC and the second mortgage and the savings account I set up in 2018 for retirement travel. The savings account has $416 in it. It had $38,000 in it in April. He was not crying. He was doing the thing men his age do instead of crying, which is putting his hand flat on the table and pressing down. I do not have $41,000. I do not have $4,000. I have $416 in a paid-off house that is no longer paid off. If we do not pay the surgery deposit by December 5th, they will not schedule it. Dr. Rasmussen said if I wait past January, my ejection fraction is going to drop below 30% and they will not be able to do the repair. They will have to do a replacement. The replacement is a different surgery. It has a longer recovery. My insurance covers less of it. I did not say anything for a long time. Foster's hand stayed flat on the table. Vivian, I do not know what to do. I have not asked you for anything in your entire life. I am asking you now, not for money, for help. I do not know how to talk to your mother anymore. I do not know how to talk to your brother. Weston has known. He has known for over a year. Camilla told me tonight when I called. I called her before I called you. She is coming here tomorrow morning with something she needs to give me, and she asked me to make sure you are here when she does. The living room was quiet. The Wheel of Fortune had ended 20 minutes ago, and Jeopardy had started and Trudy had turned the volume up because Trudy always turns the volume up when a room she is not in is not paying attention to her. I stood up. I walked to the doorway of the living room. My mother was in her recliner. She had a glass of white wine on the side table. She had her phone in her lap. She was scrolling. She did not look up when I appeared in the doorway. Vivian, Mom, you canceled the cabin. I canceled the cabin. That was a family weekend. That was a weekend where Beckett was told his food would ruin it, and Sloan was told she was too weak to attend. Trudy finally looked up. She set her phone face down on the side table. She stood up slowly. The way she stands up when she has decided a moment requires posture. She walked into the kitchen without looking at me. I followed. Foster was still at the table. He did not stand. Trudy stopped in the middle of the kitchen. She looked at me, not at Foster. She had not looked at Foster since 4/12. You raise soft children, Vivian. That is the truth. Beckett cannot eat gluten because you let him quit things at 4 years old. Sloan cries because you never told her the world does not care about her feelings, and you sit there and act like paying for a cabin makes you a mother. Weston built his kids. You babysit yours between shifts. There is a difference. There has always been a difference. Your father just does not want to say it because he thinks I am hard on you. I am not hard on you. I am honest with you. You raised weak children and you know it. That is why you paid for the cabin. Because paying is the only thing you know how to do. Foster's hand tightened on the table. I did not raise my voice. I looked at my mother. I said, Dad called me at 4:49. The second mortgage is $132,000 behind. You spent it on Weston's kids. 22 words. Trudy did not sit down. She did not step back. She did the thing she has been doing for 39 years, which is defend before the accusation has finished landing. Your father is confused. His medication makes him confused. Foster said from the table without looking up. The medication is a diuretic, Trudy. It does not affect memory. Stop. She turned to me. Her voice went up half a step, the way it goes up when she is switching angles. Vivian, you have been jealous of Weston since you were 4 years old. This is you finding a way to hurt him. Your father has been sitting at this table for 40 minutes, and you have been feeding him a version of a story that is not a story. He is sick. He is scared. You are taking advantage of a sick man. I said, the statements are on the table, Mom. The dates are on them. Your name is on them. She turned back to Foster. Her third defense was already loaded. Foster, this was Weston's idea. I was helping him. He was under pressure. His business was slow. I did not want to embarrass him. You were not supposed to see the statements yet. I was going to tell you after your surgery. Once you were well, I was protecting you. Foster looked up for the first time. He looked at his wife of 46 years. His face did not have anger on it. His face had the tiredness of a man who has spent a lifetime accepting versions of stories that made his wife look better and who has finally stopped. Trudy, you bought Red a Peloton for his 10th birthday, and you did not tell Weston it came from a second mortgage on this house. I asked Weston at Labor Day. He said you helped a little. He did not know it was your money. He knew it was somebody's money. That is not the same. You have been letting our son think he has been receiving help from a mother who could afford it. He did not know I had heart failure. He did not know Dr. Rasmussen had scheduled a repair. You told him none of that. You told him you were doing fine. You told him I was doing fine. He is not going to forgive you for that when he finds out. And he is going to find out because I am going to tell him tomorrow morning. Trudy's face did 3 things in sequence. Her mouth opened 1/4 inch and then closed. Her eyes went to Foster and then to the stack of statements on the table and then back to me. Her hands, which had been on her hips, slid down to her sides and then went behind her to the countertop. And the countertop was the only reason her hands went anywhere at all, because otherwise they would have gone nowhere and stayed there. She had lost 1/2 inch of height in the 10 seconds it had taken Foster to say those 5 sentences. She looked, for the first time in my life, like someone who was smaller than the kitchen. She did not say anything else. She walked out of the kitchen. She walked past me. She walked past the table. She walked down the hallway to their bedroom. She closed the door. She did not slam it. She closed it the way people close doors when they realize the door is the last thing they still control. I almost went after her, not to argue, to say one more sentence. I had a sentence in my mouth that I had been holding since I was 15 years old and had decided at 22, at Grandpa Ellsworth's funeral, that I was never going to say to my mother. The sentence was, Grandpa knew. He knew what you were. He gave me the compass so I would find my way out. I did not say it. I did not go after her. Foster's hand was still flat on the table, and Foster's hand was the reason I was there. And Foster's hand was more important than a sentence I had been saving for 24 years. Camilla came at 10 the next morning. She parked on the street. She did not park in the driveway. She got out of her Honda with a manila envelope and walked up the front walk in a green sweater and jeans. She had been crying, not fresh crying, the kind of crying that has been going on for 2 years and has settled into the muscles of the face and only shows up when the person tries to smile. I had known Camilla for 11 years. She had married Weston in 2013 in a small ceremony at a winery in Sevierville that Foster had helped pay for. She had been quiet at family events for as long as I had known her. I had assumed the quietness was shyness. I had been wrong. The quietness was the quietness of a woman who had been watching something rot for 2 years without a person she could safely tell. Foster and I were at the kitchen table. Foster was drinking coffee. He had eaten toast that morning. It was the first thing he had eaten since Tuesday. Camilla sat down at the third chair. She put the envelope in the middle of the table. She looked at Foster. She looked at me. Her hand stayed on the envelope for a moment before she let go. Her wedding ring caught the kitchen light. She turned it once with her thumb, the way people turn rings when they are about to say things they have been holding on to. I have been keeping track for 2 years. I started when a UPS driver delivered a Peloton to our house that Weston did not order and could not explain. I called your mother. She said it was a gift from her personal account. I said, Trudy, a Peloton is $3,200. She said, Camilla, my personal business is not your business. I hung up. I opened a Google document that night. I have been adding to it every time something arrived at our house that Weston did not buy and could not explain. This envelope contains screenshots of every delivery, every conversation, every text your mother sent me about the gifts, and every text she sent Weston telling him that Vivian was, quote, refusing to help the family, unquote. She has been telling Weston for 2 years that you have been asked to contribute to family expenses and have refused. She has been telling him that you are hoarding your salary. She has been telling him that you canceled Christmas twice because you did not want to spend money on his children. None of that is true. I have known it is not true for a year, and I did not say anything because I did not know how to say it without ending my marriage. I am telling you now because I read the lodge cancellation email yesterday, and I realized my sister-in-law is about to be blamed for something my mother-in-law has been doing to my father-in-law for 2 years, and I cannot watch her be blamed for one more thing that is not hers. She stopped. She took a breath. Her thumb was still on the ring. Foster, I want you to know I did not tell Weston I was coming here today. I told him I was meeting a friend for coffee. He does not know this file exists. If he had known, he would have tried to explain it to you first. I did not want it explained. I wanted it read. Foster picked up the envelope. He opened it. He read the first page. He put it down. He looked at Camilla. Weston believes I am refusing to help. Camilla nodded. For how long? Since about 18 months ago, when Trudy started asking him for larger sums. She told him she asked Vivian first, and Vivian said no. He asked me once if we should stop inviting Vivian to family events. I said no. He was hurt. He thought his sister had abandoned this family. He has been carrying that for 18 months. He has been resenting Vivian for something Vivian was never even asked to do. Foster looked at the envelope. He looked at me. He looked at Camilla. His hand went flat on the table again. He did that when he needed a surface to press down against. And I understood now that he had been pressing his hand against tables for a long time before this week, because a man who has been quietly managed for 46 years learns to hold on to the flat things. I looked at the compass on the kitchen windowsill. I had brought it in from the car when I got here last night because I did not want to leave it in the door pocket while I was going to be gone all night. It was on the sill above the sink. The morning light was on the brass. The needle was pointing north. It was pointing north because it was the same north it had always been pointing at, and my mother had built a decade of resentment between me and my brother out of directions that did not exist. The 8 things that happened over the next 3 weeks are things. Foster called the HELOC bank at 8 a.m. on Friday and froze the line. Trudy tried to draw $3,000 on Friday morning at 10:14 to buy her sister a Nordstrom gift certificate. The card was declined. She called the bank. The bank told her the account holder had frozen the line. She called Foster. Foster did not answer. She called 11 times. He did not answer any of them. Foster's cardiology billing office restructured the surgery deposit. Vivian went with him to the appointment. The billing manager was a woman named Bev, who had been at Rasmussen's practice for 19 years. Bev did not ask why the money was not available. Bev just restructured it. $41,000 became $980 a month for 42 months, secured against Foster's life insurance policy, which was in Foster's name only, and which Trudy had never known the amount of. The December 18th surgery date stayed on the calendar. Weston called me at 2 p.m. on Friday afternoon. His voice was rough. Vivian, I read Camilla's file. A silence. I did not know. I know you did not know. I have been an ass to you for a year and a half over money you were never asked for. Yes, you have. I am selling the Peloton and the ATV and the trampoline. I am going to send the money to Dad. Send it to Dad's cardiology account, not to Dad. Bev will apply it. Okay. A pause. Vivian. Yeah. Camilla told me she almost left me over this. Did you know that? I did not know that. I am going to therapy on Monday. I am going alone first. Then with Camilla. I am asking her to stay. Good, Weston. That is good. Trudy showed up at my door on Sunday morning with a hospital wristband on her right wrist. She said she had been admitted overnight for chest pain. She said the stress had been too much. She said she needed me to understand. She held her wrist up so I could see the band. The band was yellow. Emergency admissions get red bands. Yellow bands are outpatient. I had been married to an ICU nurse for 9 years. I knew the color codes the way I knew my social security number. I looked at her wrist. I looked at her face. I said, "That is a yellow band, Mom. That is outpatient. What did you actually go in for?" She did not answer. She stood on my porch with her wrist still up. I almost said something about the wristband, about raised shifts, about the fact that I had spent 9 years watching a man come home from the ICU and pull off his own scrubs and hang his own badge on the hook by the door. About the fact that I had learned the color codes not from a textbook, but from the arms of children I had loved. I did not say any of it. I closed the door. She stood on the porch for another 6 minutes before she walked back to her car. My Aunt Cordelia posted a screenshot in the family group chat on Monday. 33 people. Cordelia's screenshot was of my mother's Nordstrom loyalty rewards status page, which Cordelia had access to because she and Trudy had been sharing a Nordstrom account since 2011. The page showed my mother's year-to-date purchases, $28,411. Cordelia's caption was one line, "Trudy, my rewards page shows we have spent $28,111 this year. My purchases have been $340. Where did the other $28,071 come from?" 15 people left the chat in the next 72 hours. Trudy left the chat on Wednesday. She did not post a reply. The chat had 18 people left in it, and none of them spoke for the next 6 days. On Tuesday morning, Foster's cardiology social worker at Rasmussen's practice, a woman named Denise, filed an elder financial abuse report with Tennessee Adult Protective Services. She filed it after Foster mentioned during his pre-surgical intake that his wife had drained his retirement accounts and his medical savings account and his HELOC over 18 months without his authorization. Denise did not ask permission. Denise had been a cardiology social worker for 22 years, and she knew what her job required when a patient with a scheduled valve repair had $416 in his savings account and a wife who was not sleeping in the same room. APS opened a case within 72 hours. An investigator named Marlon called Foster on Thursday. He called Trudy on Friday. Trudy did not answer. He called her again on Monday. She answered. The interview lasted 41 minutes. He asked her about the second mortgage, the HELOC draws, the vendor she had never told Foster about, and the wire transfers labeled as personal checks. He asked her if she had signed her husband's name on any documents. She said, "I have his signature stamp for our joint accounts." He gave it to me. He asked if he had given her permission to use it on the second mortgage refinance in 2022. She said, "It was implied." He wrote that down. The APS case remained open pending further review, which meant a mandatory hearing was scheduled for January and a state investigator would be present. Trudy's attorney, a man she had hired on Tuesday, who had never handled an APS matter before, told her the hearing was serious. She asked him if she could avoid attending. He told her she could not. Foster moved into my guest room on the following Tuesday. He told Trudy it was to be closer to his cardiologist before surgery. That was half true. The other half was that he could not be in the house with her anymore. Foster slept in the guest room for 11 nights before Trudy called and asked him what he wanted. His voice on the phone was even. "I want you to stop." "Stop what?" "All of it." "Foster, I do not know how. That is not my problem anymore. That is between you and yourself." He hung up. Trudy called back 4 times that night. Foster did not answer. Weston sold the Peloton for $1,800. He sold the electric ATV to a family in Sevierville for $2,900. He tried to sell the in-ground trampoline, but the removal cost was more than the resale value. He paid a landscape crew $1,400 to fill in the trampoline pit and resod the yard. He sent $4,700 total to Foster's cardiology account. Bev applied it. Foster's payment plan dropped from $980 a month to $840 a month. Weston did not call me again for 4 months. That was the right amount of time. 18 months of resenting a sister does not undo in a phone call. It undoes in silence, and in quarterly payments to a father's heart surgery bill, and in showing up when nobody has asked you to. Weston sent the money every month. He did not text about it. He did not want credit for it. He was doing the thing you do when you have been wrong for a long time, and the only currency you have is consistency. Trudy came to Foster's surgery on December 18th. She sat in the waiting room. She did not sit next to Foster's chair before he was taken back. She sat 2 chairs away with an empty seat between them. She had a bag of knitting she did not knit. She had brought coffee in a thermos. She did not drink it. She looked at Foster's face while he was still awake, and she did not say anything, and Foster did not look at her. Foster's surgery took 4 hours and 11 minutes. During those 4 hours, Trudy sat in the same chair. She did not go to the cafeteria. She did not go to the restroom. She did not check her phone. She sat with the bag of knitting in her lap and her hands on top of the bag, and she watched the double doors that Foster had been wheeled through, and she did not look at me or Weston, who had come at hour 2 and sat on my side of the waiting room. Dr. Rasmussen came out afterward and told me and Trudy and Weston that Foster's ejection fraction should recover to 50% within 6 months. Trudy stood up. She looked at Rasmussen. Then she looked at me. She said, "I am glad." She did not say anything else. She left the hospital that evening while Foster was still in recovery. She has not been to see him at my house since. He has not asked her to come. The APS hearing was 3 weeks after the surgery. Trudy attended alone. Her attorney sat next to her. The investigator's report recommended a state-supervised financial guardianship over any joint accounts Foster still held with her. The judge granted it. Trudy could no longer sign anything with her husband's name. She could no longer draw on any account that had his name on it. She could no longer be trusted, on paper, in the eyes of the state of Tennessee, and paper was the only place she had ever really lived. Saturday morning, 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, my kitchen on Chapman Lane. Beckett and Sloan were at the table eating pancakes I had made from a gluten-free mix that Beckett approved of and Sloan tolerated. Foster was in my living room in the recliner I had bought at a Costco in Farragut in 2019 during my divorce because I had needed a chair I could put my feet up in when the house was quiet. Foster had his feet up. He was reading the newspaper. He was reading the sports section. He looked better than he had looked in 6 months. His color was back. His hands were not shaking. He had gained back 4 of the 8 pounds. Hollis was at the kitchen counter with a mug of coffee that had cream in it, because Hollis takes cream and I only had oat milk. She had brought her own creamer in a small mason jar because Hollis is a woman who does not expect other people's kitchens to accommodate her, but who also does not do without. On Christmas morning, Beckett came into my bedroom before Sloan was awake. He had his robe on. He sat on the edge of the bed. He said, "Mom, is Grandma Trudy coming today?" I said, "No, honey." He said, "Because of the money." I said, "Because of the money and because of what she said about you and your sister." He nodded once. Same flatness as the pickup line. He said, "Okay." He walked out. He did not ask again. He did not cry. He did not react. He is 11 years old and he has learned to receive information about his family without a face for it. And I do not know if that is a skill I taught him or a scar I gave him or both. And I have decided that both is an answer I can live with because both is the truth. Grandpa Ellsworth's brass compass was on the windowsill above the sink. I had put it there the morning Foster arrived. I had not moved it since. The morning light was hitting the casing. The needle was pointing north the way it had been pointing north since 1953. The year Grandpa bought the compass, the year my father was born, the year my grandmother was still alive, the year nobody in this story had made any of the decisions that got any of us here. The needle did not care about the decisions. The needle just kept pointing. Across town, my mother was in her house on Cherry Hill Road, alone. The Nordstrom account was closed. The HELOC was frozen. The second mortgage was on a repayment plan Foster had negotiated with the bank that would take 9 years to pay off. The Peloton was gone. The electric ATV was gone. The trampoline pit was filled in. The APS financial guardianship was in effect. The family group chat had 18 people in it, and none of them had spoken in 6 days. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table where my grandfather Ellsworth had eaten grilled cheese sandwiches when I was 12 and had put a brass compass on the table and told me I would know where north was my whole life. My grandfather had been my mother's father-in-law. He had sat at that table 100 times. He had never once given her a compass. He had known what she was. He had known what she would become. And on a Saturday morning in mid-December, my mother sat at the same table without a compass. And she did not know what north was, and she had never known. And she had spent a whole life pretending direction was something you could purchase at Nordstrom. On my kitchen counter, Hollis was pouring cream from her mason jar into her coffee. She stirred it once. She took a sip. She looked at Beckett, who was cutting his pancake into pieces the size of postage stamps, because that is how Beckett cuts pancakes. She looked at Sloan, who was drawing a turkey on a napkin, because Sloan draws turkeys on napkins now the way other kids draw hearts. She looked at me. She said, "The compass looks good in the window." I said, "It always did. I just did not know it belonged there." She nodded once. She took another sip of coffee. If this story found you today, subscribe to Family Secret Tales and share it with the person who was told their children were the problem by the person who was quietly draining the family to feed the ones she had chosen. My grandfather Ellsworth gave me a brass compass when I was 12 and told me I would know where north was my whole life. He did not tell me I would need to learn what north was for. I learned it on a Wednesday in November at 3:22 in the afternoon in a school pickup line, with an 11-year-old boy in the passenger seat who did not blink at his grandmother's cruelty, and an 8-year-old girl in the back seat holding a paper turkey she had made with extra feathers. The compass points north. The pancakes were warm, the recliner was full, and the house was quiet the way houses are quiet when the people inside them are the ones who were supposed to be inside them all along.